The sound of rain had become a constant in their home, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. But that night, as Daniel stood in the living room of their two-story house on Rainier Street, the sound felt different. Hollow. Empty. He glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Emily should have been home an hour ago. She had texted earlier. Still wrapping up things at the clinic. Don't wait up, red heart. Daniel stared at that heart emoji longer than he wanted to admit. It was small, digital, harmless, yet tonight, it looked false. Forced. He paced to the window. Across the street, the rain pooled on the asphalt, reflecting the dim amber of streetlights. Their neighbor's porch light flicked on as a cat darted past. Seattle was quiet in this hour, hushed under its endless rain. He picked up his phone again and called her. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Something inside him, a quiet instinct he couldn't explain, began to turn. Emily was a veterinary nurse, devoted, patient, and precise. She loved her job. But for the last 2 months, her shifts had been longer, her explanations vaguer. Emergency cases, she said. Late-night surgeries. Yet the scent of her perfume would linger differently when she returned, heavier, foreign. And her laughter, when she spoke on the phone, had changed too. Daniel poured himself a glass of bourbon and sank onto the couch. The house felt colder than usual. They had been married for 9 years, together since college. They had built this life piece by piece, 2 careers, a home near Lake Washington, a quiet rhythm of shared dinners and weekend hikes. But lately, the rhythm was off. She'd started drifting, subtly, like a tide pulling away. When the sound of a car engine finally came from outside, he set the glass down too quickly, spilling a few drops onto the table. Headlights cut through the rain. Emily's blue Honda pulled into the driveway. He didn't move. He just watched. She sat there for a moment before turning off the engine, a long pause, her silhouette barely visible behind the wet windshield. Then the door opened, and she stepped out, hood pulled over her hair, a faint light from her phone screen illuminating her face. She smiled slightly, not the kind of smile meant for him, Daniel thought, but for someone else. When she entered, she jumped a little at the sight of him. "Oh, you're still up," she said, shaking off her coat. "You scared me." "I couldn't sleep," he said. Emily smiled, forced and tired. "Rough day." "I was about to ask you the same." Her eyes flickered briefly, a hesitation, so small it might have gone unnoticed. But Daniel noticed everything now. "There was a golden retriever who swallowed a tennis ball," she said quickly. "Surgery took hours. Poor thing almost didn't make it." He nodded slowly. "And that took until midnight?" "Daniel," she sighed, brushing past him. "Can we not do this tonight? I'm exhausted." He didn't stop her. Just watched as she disappeared upstairs, the faint scent of her perfume trailing behind, sharper than the one she usually wore. That night, as he lay beside her in bed, she turned away, falling asleep almost instantly. Daniel stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain tapping the window. Something inside him whispered that he had already lost her. The next morning, he tried to act normal. Coffee. Toast. Small talk. But the air between them was heavier than the gray clouds outside. "I might be late again tonight," Emily said, avoiding his eyes. "Dr. Patel's got a few surgeries lined up." Daniel nodded. "Sure. Be careful driving." He smiled. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. When she left, Daniel sat down at the table, phone in hand. His thumb hovered over the search bar. He didn't want to be that kind of man, paranoid, insecure, obsessive. But then again, he didn't want to be a fool either. Finally, he opened the Find My Phone app. They shared locations, a habit from years ago, back when trust was simple. The map loaded slowly. Then, there it was, her phone's dot. She wasn't at the clinic. She was on the other side of the city. Capitol Hill. Daniel's stomach tightened. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped, leaving the city slick and glistening. He drove through downtown Seattle, traffic lights reflecting off wet pavement, past coffee shops and apartment complexes, following the blue dot on his screen. Finally, it stopped moving, near East Olive Street. He parked a block away. Sat there for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel. What was he doing? He told himself he just wanted the truth, no scenes, no accusations, just clarity. But when he saw her car, and then her, stepping out of a corner cafe, laughing, head tilted, hair falling forward, with another man beside her, the air went out of him. Tall, clean-cut, maybe early 40s. They walked close. Too close. The man placed a hand on her lower back as they crossed the street. Daniel felt something inside him split open. He didn't confront them. He just sat there, watching until they disappeared into an apartment building. The truth, it turned out, hurt more quietly than he imagined. He drove home in silence, his reflection faint in the windshield, his mind replaying the scene over and over. When she came home that night, she smiled the same tired smile, kissed his cheek, and asked about dinner. He played along. Asked about her long day. Listened to her fabricated stories about surgeries that never happened. It became a pattern. A slow ritual of lies and silence. Every evening she was on call, he tracked her location. Every night she returned smelling faintly of someone else's cologne. He started sleeping in the guest room. She said nothing. Two strangers living in the same house, pretending. The days that followed felt like a dream Daniel couldn't wake from. He moved through routines on autopilot, shower, shave, coffee, commute, while something in him hollowed out. He worked as a systems analyst for a small Seattle tech firm, quiet, methodical work that required focus. But lately, he couldn't concentrate. His screen blurred, numbers ran together, and every time his phone buzzed, his stomach clenched. He'd always trusted Emily completely. They'd been through so much, the miscarriage 3 years ago, the financial strain when he was laid off, the long nights where she held him and whispered that things would get better. She had been his anchor. Now, that anchor felt like a stone around his neck. That Friday, he told his manager he needed to leave early. He didn't say why. By 6 p.m., he was parked again near East Olive Street, the same spot as before. Rain tapped on the windshield like a metronome of dread. At 6:42, she appeared. Emily. Wearing a tan coat he didn't recognize. Her hair loose, slightly curled. She looked younger. Lighter. The way she used to look years ago when they first met. Then came the man. Same one. They walked into the same apartment building, the Winslow, a brick mid-rise with ivy climbing its walls. Daniel watched the door close behind them. He didn't follow. Not yet. Instead, he waited. Minutes dragged into an hour. Then 2. He stared at that door, thinking of every moment of their marriage, the laughter, the fights, the plans. All of it bleeding into something unrecognizable. By 9:58 p.m., his hands were trembling. He finally stepped out of the car. Rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of it, damp asphalt, wet leaves. He crossed the street, walked up the steps, and stood before the glass door. Inside, the hallway light flickered softly. He didn't have a plan. Just a compulsion, to see. To know. But as his hand hovered near the buzzer, he froze. If he went up there, there would be no turning back. No pretending. No going home to the illusion of safety. And suddenly, that terrified him more than anything. He turned away. That night, when she came home past midnight, Daniel was waiting in the darkened kitchen. The clock ticked quietly. Emily jumped when she saw him. Jesus, Daniel. You scared me again. Where were you? She blinked. I told you. Emergency surgery. No, he said, voice low. You weren't at the clinic. Her eyes flickered, a flash of panic, gone as quickly as it came. What are you talking about? She said, too calmly. I tracked your phone. For a moment, the only sound was the refrigerator's hum. Then she laughed, brittle, hollow. You tracked me? Daniel, that's insane. He didn't respond. Do you hear yourself? She said, crossing her arms. That's controlling. Paranoid. You were at the Winslow apartments, he said. With him. The laughter died. Her face paled. She stood there, caught between denial and confession. Daniel, she began, voice trembling. It's not what you think. He stared at her. Then what is it? She hesitated, a second too long. That was his answer. Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling something inside him collapse. How long? He asked. Her eyes filled. Please, can we not? How long, Emily? Tears welled. A few months, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to. He laughed bitterly. Wasn't supposed to what? Happen? Mean anything? You've been lying to me every night. She shook her head, crying now. It's not that simple. It never is, he said, turning away. That night, Daniel slept in the guest room. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling until dawn, hearing the faint sound of her crying in the next room. By morning, she was gone. A note sat on the counter. I'm staying with my sister for a while. We both need space. I'm sorry, Daniel. No signature. No explanation. Days turned into weeks. Friends noticed his silence, his distraction. At work, he was mechanical. At home, the rooms echoed. He deleted her number twice, then restored it both times. Her things still filled the house, the sweater draped on the couch, her favorite mug by the sink. Ghosts of routine. One rainy evening, Daniel opened her laptop. She'd left it behind. He didn't mean to. But when he saw the desktop background, a photo of them from Oregon years ago, something in him cracked. He opened her email. And there it was. Hundreds of messages. Ryan. That was his name. A doctor from the clinic. Divorced. They'd met after hours, coffee runs, late-night surgeries. Daniel read until the words blurred. Lines about feeling alive again, needing space, not wanting to hurt him. Each sentence was a blade. When he finally shut the laptop, dawn was breaking outside. He didn't call her. Not for days. Not until the silence itself became unbearable. When he finally did, she answered softly. Daniel? Where are you? At my sister's. Why? I need to see you. A pause. Are you sure that's a good idea? I'm sure. They met at a small cafe near Green Lake, one they used to go to on Sundays. The air smelled of roasted beans and rain. She looked smaller somehow, thinner. Eyes tired. They sat across from each other, silent for a long time. Finally, Daniel said, "Why him?" She looked down. He listened. That hurt more than he expected. I listened, Daniel said quietly. I know, she whispered. But somewhere along the way, we stopped hearing each other. He wanted to scream. To accuse. But instead, he just said, "You destroyed everything." I know. Tears filled her eyes again. I didn't mean to fall for him. I didn't plan it. But after everything, the miscarriage, your job, the silence, I felt like I was disappearing. And he made you feel seen, Daniel said bitterly. She nodded. Yes. They sat there, the noise of espresso machines and chatter fading around them. Finally, she said, I think we should sell the house. He nodded slowly. There was nothing left to save. The house on Rainier Street became a museum of absence. Her coat still hung by the door. Her perfume still lingered faintly in the bedroom. But it was all static now, memories trapped in fabric, scent, and air. Daniel didn't touch anything. He moved through the rooms like a visitor, careful not to disturb the ghosts. The divorce papers arrived in early December. Thick envelope. No surprises inside. Just the formal end of a decade. He signed them without reading twice. Then poured himself a drink and sat on the back porch, watching the rain slide down the glass. Seattle's winter had come, gray skies pressed low, the cold smell of pine and salt from the sound. Somewhere, distant foghorns called through the mist. He thought of her laughter, her warmth, the way she used to rest her head on his shoulder when they watched movies. He thought of the man, Ryan, and the way her smile had changed when she spoke about work. The thought made him sick. But under the sickness, something else simmered. Not rage, not exactly. Something colder. Closure. 3 weeks later, he saw them again. He hadn't planned it. He'd been walking near Pike Place Market, hands in his jacket pockets, the air thick with the smell of fish and coffee. Crowds shuffled under umbrellas. Street musicians played soft acoustic covers of old songs. And then, there they were. Emily and Ryan. Holding hands. They stopped at a small flower stand, laughing. She looked lighter, freer, the same woman who once smiled that way only for him. Daniel froze, hidden among strangers. His heart thudded. He could have walked away. He almost did. But something in him refused to let the moment pass, this intersection of old life and new betrayal. He approached slowly. Emily saw him first. Her smile faltered. The color drained from her face. Ryan turned, his expression tightening into something cautious. Daniel, Emily whispered. What are you? Just out for a walk, Daniel said evenly. His voice was calm, but his pulse hammered. Didn't realize Seattle was so small. Ryan extended a hand. Hey. Daniel, right? Daniel looked at it. Then at him. Didn't take it. For a moment, the air between the three of them felt like thin glass, brittle, waiting to shatter. Emily swallowed hard. This isn't the place. You're right, Daniel said softly. But then again, where is the place for something like this? He looked at her, really looked. The woman who had once been his whole life now stood before him as a stranger. A stranger holding someone else's hand. Do you love him? He asked. Her lips trembled. Daniel, please. Do you? Yes, she said finally. Barely above a whisper. The word struck like a physical blow. Short, final, irreversible. Ryan placed a hand on her arm. Maybe we should go. Daniel laughed, a dry, hollow sound. Yeah. You should. Then he turned and walked away, the crowd swallowing him up. That night, back at the house, Daniel packed what was left of her belongings into boxes. Her books. Her framed photos. Her favorite ceramic mug. He didn't cry. Not anymore. When he finished, he sealed the last box with tape, carried it outside, and left it by the curb for her to pick up. Inside the empty living room, he poured another drink and sat in the dark, staring at nothing. Rain started again, steady, relentless. Seattle rain. The kind that didn't wash things clean, only made them clearer. In January, he moved out. Sold the house. Bought a small apartment overlooking the lake. Sparse, minimal. Clean slate. He started running again. Stopped drinking so much. Went to therapy once a week. Sometimes, he'd wake up at night, expecting to hear her breathing beside him, that faint, familiar rhythm. But it was always just the quiet hum of the city outside. He learned to live with it. He never called her again. Never checked her location. Never read another email. Whatever they'd been, whatever they'd lost, was over. Spring came late that year. One afternoon, Daniel stood by the water at Gasworks Park, watching the clouds shift over Lake Union. The skyline shimmered faintly in the distance, cranes, glass, rain light. He thought about forgiveness. Not the kind you say out loud, but the kind that settles in your bones when you've exhausted every ounce of pain. Some part of him would always love her. Another part would never forgive her. Both could coexist. He turned his face toward the pale sun breaking through the clouds. Somewhere, life was starting again. Quietly. Imperfectly. And for the first time in a long while, that felt enough. Epilogue. Months later, a letter arrived, postmarked from Portland. It was from Emily. No return address, just a single page in her handwriting. Daniel. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know that I think of you often, not with regret, but with gratitude. You were kind to me, even when I didn't deserve it. I hope you're okay. I hope you're free. He read it once. Then again. And then he folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer, and went for a walk. Outside, the sky had begun to drizzle again, thin, silver rain falling over the city that had witnessed everything. He lifted his face to it. The house on Rainier Street was gone, but its ghost lived quietly in him, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Love, he realized, doesn't always die in fire. Sometimes, it fades in rain.